I never thought my own parents would orchestrate my destruction, but that's exactly what happened at their 25th anniversary party last Saturday night. My name is Jennifer Walsh-Martinez, and for 38 years, I believed my mom and dad were the kind of people who'd move mountains for their family. Dad, quiet, dependable Robert, who taught me to balance a checkbook and change a tire. Mom, warm, nurturing Linda, who still calls every Sunday to check if I'm eating enough vegetables. They raised me in Naperville with Midwest values, loyalty, honesty, and putting family first. When my marriage to Tom fell apart 2 years ago, they were my safety net. They helped me find my little rental house 3 blocks from their home. They picked up my kids from school when my guidance counselor job ran late. They never once said, "I told you so," even though they'd had reservations about Tom from the beginning. So when they asked me to help plan their silver anniversary celebration, I threw myself into it completely. I booked the church hall, coordinated with the caterer, created a photo slideshow spanning 25 years of their love story. I wanted to give them something beautiful, something that honored everything they'd built together. The party was perfect. Soft lighting, elegant decorations, family and friends sharing stories and laughter. I felt proud watching them dance to "The Way You Look Tonight," the same song from their wedding. This was what real love looked like, what I hoped to find again someday. Then, my 17-year-old daughter, Chloe, appeared at my elbow, her face pale and urgent. "Mom," she whispered, "we need to go, now." "What's wrong, sweetheart?" I asked, scanning the room for whatever had spooked her. "I'll explain in the car," she said, already pulling me toward the exit, "but we can't stay here another minute." During that tense drive home, past the familiar streets where I'd rebuilt my life, Chloe finally spoke the words that changed everything. "Mom, you didn't see what they were really doing in there, did you? This wasn't an anniversary party. It was something else entirely." I still get chills remembering what she told me next, because it revealed a betrayal so calculated, so devastating, that it nearly destroyed my family forever. The weight of that manila envelope felt heavier than everything I'd lost in my divorce combined. 2 years of rebuilding my life in this quiet suburb, the guided meditation classes at the community center, the book club meetings where we discussed everything except our personal disasters, the careful grocery shopping at Target, where I'd learned to buy for 3 instead of 4. All of it suddenly felt like borrowed time. Tom and I had been college sweethearts at Northwestern, the kind of couple everyone envied. High school guidance counselor meets ambitious software engineer, 2 kids, a colonial house with a white picket fence in Wheaton. We'd hosted barbecues where neighbors lingered past midnight, planned family vacations to Wisconsin Dells, built what everyone called the perfect life. When it crumbled, I'd been grateful for the grace period my parents offered. Emotional support, financial help with the security deposit on my rental, endless containers of Mom's famous lasagna appearing in my freezer. Chloe inherited her father's analytical mind, but my protective instincts. 17 years old and already more perceptive than most adults, she'd been my anchor through the custody arrangements, the mediation sessions, the nights when I cried into my coffee after putting her younger brother Marcus to bed. Marcus, my artistic 14-year-old who painted watercolor sunsets and asked questions that broke my heart. Why doesn't Dad come to my school concerts anymore? Is it my fault you and Dad fight about money? The kids lived with me during the week, spent weekends with Tom and his new wife Ashley in their pristine townhouse 20 minutes away. Ashley, the dental hygienist with Pinterest-perfect organization skills, who sent me passive-aggressive texts about Marcus's eating habits and Chloe's curfew times. She'd been Tom's friend for the last year of our marriage, coffee meetings that became lunch dates, work emergencies that required weekend consolation. My parents had watched this whole dissolution with quiet concern, never criticizing Tom directly, but offering pointed observations about character and commitment. Dad would say things like, "A man who breaks his word to his wife will break it to his children too." Mom's approach was more subtle. Extra attention to the kids, gentle questions about how I was really holding up, strategic mentions of successful single mothers in our community. Their support had been my lifeline. Sunday dinners where Marcus could be a kid again, Chloe could vent about teenage drama without worrying about my feelings, and I could pretend to be the daughter instead of the mother, carrying everyone's emotional weight. They'd even offered to co-sign a loan if I wanted to buy a house instead of renting, talking about generational wealth and giving the kids stability. Now, watching Mom fold those legal documents with the same careful precision she used for church bulletins, everything clicked into a horrifying new pattern. The manila envelope contained emergency custody modification papers, filed that morning and backdated to make it look like Tom had been planning this for weeks. Ashley stood beside him wearing the kind of satisfied smile that made my stomach turn, her phone already recording as guests began to notice the commotion. What happened next unfolded like a nightmare in slow motion. Mom approached our table where the kids and I were sitting, her face composed, but her hands trembling slightly as she held the documents. "Jennifer, honey," she said quietly, "we need to talk about this situation with the children." "What situation?" The words came out sharper than intended, but guests were starting to stare. Mrs. Henderson from our old neighborhood leaned closer to her husband, whispering behind her hand. The Kowalski family, whose kids had grown up with mine, suddenly found their appetizers fascinating. Dad joined Mom, his expression grave in a way that reminded me of when he delivered bad news about my grandmother's cancer diagnosis years ago. Tom's provided some concerning documentation about the living environment, he said, voice low but carrying in the suddenly quiet room. Photos, financial records, character references that suggest... Character references? Heat flooded my cheeks as the words registered. "What are you talking about?" Ashley stepped forward then, her voice honey-sweet but loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "We're just worried about Chloe and Marcus, Jen. The late-night dates, the different men picking you up, the unpaid bills we found evidence of. It's affecting their school performance, their emotional stability." Chloe shot to her feet so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "That's completely—" "Sweetheart," Tom interrupted, his tone patronizing in that way that had driven me crazy during our marriage. "Adults are talking." But our daughter wasn't finished. Her voice carried across the room with startling clarity. "Mom's been on exactly 2 dates in 2 years, and Uncle Robert, you know that's true because you drove her to both of them." She turned to face Ashley directly. "And those unpaid bills you're talking about, Mom showed me the bank statements. Every single payment is current." The room fell silent except for the soft jazz playing through the church's sound system. Tom's face flushed red, Ashley's confident expression faltered, and my parents exchanged a look that I couldn't quite read. That's when the real shock hit me. This entire evening had been orchestrated, but not by Tom and Ashley alone. Standing in that church hall, surrounded by family friends who'd watched my children grow up, the true scope of what was happening crystallized with terrifying clarity. This wasn't just about custody. It was about erasing me entirely from the life we'd built together. Tom wanted the house in Wheaton, the one with Marcus's art studio in the basement and Chloe's childhood growth marks penciled on the kitchen doorframe. Ashley wanted to play mother to my children without the inconvenience of their actual mother's presence. But the stakes ran deeper than real estate and weekend visitations. My job as a Biden's counselor required state background checks, clean financial records, and spotless character references. any substantiated claims of instability could end my career, leaving me unable to support myself, much less fight for my kids. The community where we'd put down roots, the soccer leagues, the parent-teacher conferences, the neighborhood 4th of July parties, would become a minefield of whispered judgments and awkward encounters. Most devastating was the realization that my own parents might be complicit in this destruction. 25 years of teaching me about loyalty, integrity, and standing up for what's right, and they were potentially betraying every lesson they'd ever given me. Over the next 20 minutes, you'll discover exactly how deep this conspiracy went, why my parents made the choice they did, and how one teenager's fierce loyalty became the key to exposing a deception that could have destroyed our family forever. Because sometimes the people who seem to betray you are actually the ones fighting hardest to save you. The drive home from the church felt like escaping a crime scene, my hands gripping the steering wheel while Chloe sat in the passenger seat, systematically screenshotting everything she'd witnessed. Marcus huddled in the back, earbuds in but music off, his way of pretending not to hear while absorbing every word we said. "Show me what you saw," came out more as a command than a request, but Chloe understood the urgency. Her phone revealed a carefully orchestrated performance that made my blood run cold. Photos of Ashley positioning herself near our table 20 minutes before the custody papers appeared. Screenshots of a group text chain between Tom, Ashley, and someone listed as R. Walsh, my father's contact information. The messages painted a timeline of coordination that stretched back weeks. "Jennifer seems stable lately. Need to accelerate timeline. Kids mention she's been happier. This complicates things. Anniversary party. Perfect cover. Everyone will witness her reaction." But the most damning evidence was a voice recording Chloe had captured when she'd gone to get punch from the refreshment table. Ashley's voice crystal clear. "Once we get emergency custody, we can file for permanent placement. The house in Wheaton transfers with the kids, and she'll be too broke from legal fees to fight back." Sleep became impossible that night. By 3 a.m., fueled by coffee and determination, a deeper digital investigation revealed financial records that made no sense. Tom's bank statements showed regular deposits from an account labeled Walsh Family Trust, money that had been funding his legal fees for months. Dad had been secretly financing the custody battle against his own daughter. Mom's credit card statements told an even more disturbing story. Payments to a private investigator named Derek Morrison, charges for background check services, and multiple transactions at office supply stores for what could only be document preparation. The woman who taught Sunday school for 15 years had been building a case against me with the methodical precision of a prosecutor. The breaking point came Tuesday morning when Marcus asked a question that shattered my remaining illusions about family loyalty. "Mom, why did Grandma ask me last week if you ever leave us alone at night? She said it was for a school project, but it felt weird." That's when the pattern became undeniable. The random afternoon visits from my parents, always when Tom was supposed to have the kids. The subtle questions about my dating life, my work schedule, my financial situation. The offers to babysit that always came with gentle interrogations afterward. "Did Mom seem upset when she picked you up? Has she been on her phone a lot lately? Do you ever worry about her?" They'd been gathering intelligence, building a case file of every vulnerable moment, every human imperfection that could be weaponized against me in court. The Sunday dinners hadn't been about family bonding. They'd been evidence-gathering sessions disguised as grandparent time. Chloe discovered the most devastating piece of the puzzle when she remembered something that hadn't seemed important at the time. "Mom, remember when Grandpa asked to borrow my laptop last month? He said his was getting slow and he needed to check email. But I saw him going through your old Facebook photos, the ones from when you and Dad were having problems." Those photos had been screenshots now, saved images of me looking tired at Marcus's basketball game, distracted at Chloe's school concert, overwhelmed at the grocery store during what had been the worst week of the divorce proceedings. Normal moments of human exhaustion now being transformed into evidence of unfit parenting. The realization hit like a physical blow. My parents hadn't just betrayed me, they'd betrayed their grandchildren, using them as unwitting spies against their own mother. Every innocent conversation, every shared confidence, every moment of childish honesty had been cataloged and reported back to build a case for removing these kids from my care. But as devastating as this discovery was, it also revealed something Tom and Ashley hadn't anticipated. In their eagerness to gather evidence against me, they'd created a paper trail of their own deception. Bank records, phone logs, and digital communications that proved conspiracy, fraud, and potentially criminal misuse of legal proceedings. The hunter had become the hunted, and they had no idea what was coming next. Because while they'd been documenting my every perceived flaw, Chloe had been documenting theirs. And unlike their fabricated evidence, ours was completely, unforgivably real. Wednesday morning brought an unexpected visitor who changed everything. Aunt Carol, Dad's older sister, stood on my doorstep at 7 a.m. with red-rimmed eyes and a manila folder clutched against her chest like a shield. She'd driven 3 hours from Milwaukee overnight, she said, because she couldn't live with what she'd witnessed at the anniversary party. "Your father made me promise never to tell you this," Carol began, settling into my kitchen chair with the weariness of someone carrying a terrible secret. "But after Saturday night, after seeing what Tom and that woman did to you in front of everyone," her voice broke. "Jennifer, honey, your parents aren't trying to hurt you. They're trying to save you from something much worse." The folder contained medical records, police reports, and photographs that painted a picture of Tom's deterioration that made my stomach lurch. Hospital visits for suspicious injuries, Ashley's broken wrist, documented as a fall downstairs, emergency room records showing Tom seeking treatment for anxiety and insomnia, requesting increasingly stronger medications, credit card statements revealing cash advances and mysterious charges to online pharmacies. But the most damning evidence was a recording Carol had made on her phone during a family gathering 3 weeks ago. Tom's voice, slurred and aggressive, telling Ashley she needed to shut up about the pills because Jennifer's too stupid to figure it out anyway. His laugh was hollow, dangerous. "Once we get the kids, she can suspect whatever she wants. No court will believe a bitter ex-wife over a stable family." The realization hit like ice water flooding my veins. Tom had become addicted to prescription medication, and Ashley was enabling his addiction while helping him maintain the facade of stability. The custody battle wasn't about winning our children. It was about using them as shields to hide his deteriorating mental state. A man with 2 kids and a devoted wife looked responsible to judges and employers. A divorced man with a drug problem looked like a liability. "Your parents found out 6 months ago," Carol continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "Ashley called your mother, crying, begging for help. She said Tom had been taking her anxiety medication, then moved on to stronger things when hers ran out. She was scared but didn't know how to leave him." The anniversary party suddenly made horrifying sense. Mom and Dad hadn't been gathering evidence against me. They'd been gathering evidence against Tom, documenting his erratic behavior, his increasingly aggressive demands for money, his volatile reactions to any perceived criticism. The private investigator hadn't been hired to spy on my parenting. He'd been hired to track Tom's prescription drug purchases and Ashley's desperate attempts to cover for him. "But why didn't they just tell me?" The question came out as barely a whisper, because part of me already knew the answer. Carol's expression softened with something that looked like pity. Because you still loved him, sweetheart. Even after everything he put you through, you still wanted to protect him for the kids' sake. Your parents knew that if they told you about the addiction, you'd try to help him instead of protecting yourself and the children. The truth of that statement cut deeper than any betrayal could have. Even now, learning about Tom's problems, my first instinct was to worry about him, to wonder if he was getting proper treatment, to feel guilty for not noticing the signs earlier. Mom and Dad had known their daughter well enough to predict exactly that reaction. The custody papers were fake, Carol continued. Emergency filings that would never hold up in court, but realistic enough to force Tom into showing his true colors in public. Your father needed witnesses to see his aggression, his willingness to humiliate you, his complete lack of regard for how this would affect the children. Looking back at Saturday night with this new information, every detail clicked into place with devastating clarity. Dad's grave expression hadn't been disappointment in me. It had been controlled fury at watching Tom manipulate legal documents to threaten his daughter. Mom's trembling hands weren't from nerves about confronting me. They were from the strain of watching her son-in-law attempt to destroy her child while pretending to be concerned about his own children's welfare. Ashley's confident smile when she'd started recording made sense now too. She thought she was documenting my public breakdown, gathering evidence of my instability. Instead, she'd captured Tom's patronizing dismissal of Chloe, his aggressive body language, and his complete inability to respond appropriately when confronted with facts that contradicted his narrative. The most devastating realization was how thoroughly Tom had been manipulating the children during his visitation weekends. The questions Marcus had mentioned, Grandma asking if Mom left them alone, concerns about my dating life, worries about my emotional stability, those hadn't been my parents' interrogation tactics. They'd been Tom's coaching, teaching his children to spy on their mother and report back anything that could be used against me. Your parents have been building a case for 6 months, Carol said, pulling out another folder. Real evidence this time. Financial records showing Tom's drug purchases, medical documentation of Ashley's injuries, witness statements from neighbors who've called police about domestic disturbances at their townhouse. The anniversary party hadn't been an ambush, it had been a trap. Mom and Dad had given Tom exactly what he wanted: a public forum with witnesses, official-looking documents, and the opportunity to reveal his true character when he thought he had the upper hand. Every cruel word, every manipulative gesture, every moment of aggression had been witnessed by family friends who'd known Tom for years and could testify to the dramatic change in his behavior. But there was still one piece of the puzzle that didn't fit, one question that made my heart race with new fear. Carol, the words came out hoarse, if Mom and Dad knew all this, why did they let Tom continue having unsupervised visits with the kids? Her silence stretched too long, and when she finally looked up, her eyes held a truth that made everything else pale in comparison. They haven't been alone with him in 2 months, Carol said quietly. Your parents have been secretly supervising every single visit. The revelation hit like a physical blow. All those weekends when Tom claimed to be taking the kids to movies, museums, and restaurants, Mom and Dad had been there, positioned at nearby tables, watching from across playgrounds, ensuring their grandchildren's safety while maintaining the illusion of normal father-child time. The elaborate deception had protected Chloe and Marcus while giving Tom enough rope to hang himself. But the surveillance had revealed something even more disturbing. Carol opened her phone and showed me a video dated 3 weeks ago. Tom in a McDonald's parking lot, screaming at Marcus for spilling a drink, his face contorted with rage that seemed completely disproportionate to the minor accident. Ashley sat in the passenger seat, filming the outburst instead of intervening, her expression calculating rather than concerned. "She's been documenting his episodes," Carol explained, her voice hollow with disgust. "Not to get him help, but to use them as leverage. Ashley knows exactly how unstable he's become, and she's been encouraging it because an incompetent father means she gets full control over the children and the financial benefits that come with them." The pieces of Ashley's strategy fell into place with chilling precision. She'd been playing a long game, letting Tom deteriorate while gathering evidence of his unfitness, then positioning herself as the stable parental figure who could step in and save the children from both their incompetent father and their allegedly irresponsible mother. 2 parents eliminated, full custody and control transferred to her. Thursday brought the consequences of Saturday night's public confrontation in waves that threatened to drown everything we'd built. Principal Martinez called to schedule an urgent meeting about concerns raised by community members regarding my emotional stability and its potential impact on my role as guidance counselor. The phrasing was careful, professional, but the threat was unmistakable. Mrs. Henderson from our old neighborhood had already started the whisper campaign at the grocery store. Poor Jennifer, falling apart so publicly at her own parents' anniversary party. You could see it coming, really. The stress of single motherhood, trying to date again, those children acting out because they miss their father. Each retelling grew more dramatic, more damaging to the reputation that determined whether families trusted me with their teenagers' futures. The financial warfare escalated when Tom's lawyer filed motion after motion, each one designed to drain resources rather than seek justice. Emergency hearings about immediate danger to the children, demands for psychological evaluations, requests for supervised visitation pending full custody review. Every legal document required response. Every response required billable hours, and the attorney fees were mounting faster than my savings account could handle. Chloe's grades began slipping as the stress took its toll on her concentration. Teachers who'd known her since kindergarten suddenly viewed her through the lens of family drama, their warm smiles replaced by concerned whispers and careful distance. The honors classes she'd worked so hard to qualify for felt meaningless when every day brought new uncertainty about whether she'd even be living in the same school district next month. Marcus retreated into his art with an intensity that worried me, painting increasingly dark watercolors of storms and shadows. His father's weekend visits had become sources of anxiety rather than joy, and the confident, chatty boy who used to narrate his entire day was now choosing silence over the risk of saying something that might be used against his mother later. The community that had once felt like our safety net was fracturing along invisible lines. Some neighbors rallied with supportive casseroles and offers to carpool, but others distanced themselves with the self-protective instinct of people who didn't want to get involved in messy divorces. The book club meetings became awkward affairs where conversations died when someone mentioned family stability or child welfare. Most devastating was the realization that Tom's strategy was working exactly as Ashley had planned. The manufactured crisis was consuming every aspect of our lives, leaving no energy for healing, growth, or building the stable future we deserved. Each day felt like survival rather than living. Each decision weighed against its potential to be twisted into evidence of unfitness. But the psychological warfare had one fatal flaw that Tom and Ashley hadn't considered. They'd underestimated both the strength of the family they were trying to destroy and the intelligence of the children they were attempting to manipulate. Because while they'd been orchestrating public humiliation and legal harassment, Chloe had been quietly documenting their own behavior with the same methodical precision they'd tried to use against us. The hunter was about to become the hunted, and the trap was set for Marcus's upcoming birthday party, an event Tom had insisted on co-hosting, never imagining it would become the stage for his final, devastating exposure. Friday morning shattered what remained of my carefully maintained composure when the school district's human resources director called with news that made my hands shake. Tom had filed a formal complaint questioning my fitness to counsel vulnerable teenagers, citing documented instability and poor judgment in personal relationships. The investigation would begin Monday, and until its completion, administrative leave was mandatory. 24 hours before Marcus's birthday party, everything we'd fought to preserve was crumbling. The house payment was due in 10 days, and without my counselor's salary, the numbers simply didn't add up. Worse than the financial catastrophe was the professional devastation. Guidance counselors who lost their positions for fitness concerns rarely found new ones, especially in small communities where reputations traveled faster than resumes. Marcus found me crying at the kitchen table that evening, surrounded by legal documents and overdue bills that painted a picture of impending disaster. "Mom," he said quietly, settling into the chair beside me with the gravity of someone much older than 14, "are we going to lose our house?" The question hung in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore and toxic to breathe. Chloe's voice from the doorway was tight with fury. "This is exactly what Ashley wanted. She told Dad that if they could get you fired, you'd have no choice but to agree to whatever custody arrangement they demanded." Our 17-year-old daughter had been carrying the weight of adult knowledge for weeks, watching her family's destruction unfold while maintaining the facade of normal teenage life. Sleep became impossible as worst-case scenarios played on repeat through the endless night. Losing the kids meant losing everything that mattered, but fighting for them meant risking bankruptcy, professional ruin, and potentially giving Tom ammunition to claim that my desperation proved his point about my instability. Ashley's strategy was diabolical in its simplicity. Create a crisis so overwhelming that surrender seemed like the only rational choice. The darkest realization came at 4 a.m. when exhaustion finally forced brutal honesty. Maybe Tom was right. Maybe a stable two-parent home with financial security was better than a single mother struggling to hold everything together with determination and love. Maybe putting my children's material needs ahead of my maternal instincts was the right choice, even if it felt like dying. But as dawn broke through the kitchen window, illuminating the breakfast nook where we'd shared thousands of conversations about homework and dreams and daily disappointments, one truth crystallized with absolute clarity. Tom and Ashley had made one catastrophic mistake in their campaign to destroy us. They'd forgotten that some things can't be faked, bought, or legally mandated. Love, loyalty, and the fierce protective bond between a mother and her children, those were weapons they didn't possess and couldn't understand. Today's party would determine everything. Marcus's birthday party began like a perfect family gathering, which made what happened next even more devastating for Tom and Ashley. The backyard was decorated with superhero themes, neighbors mingled with relatives, and the elaborate cake Ashley had insisted on ordering sat as the centerpiece of what she clearly expected to be her triumphant debut as the family's new matriarch. Tom arrived 40 minutes late, his pupils dilated, and his speech slightly slurred, details that would have been easy to miss if you weren't specifically watching for them. But Carol was watching, positioned near the patio with her phone recording, while Dad maintained casual conversation with Tom's brother Mike, ensuring multiple witnesses to every interaction. The first crack in Ashley's facade appeared when she tried to take control of the gift opening ceremony, positioning herself next to Marcus like the proud mother while relegating me to the role of helpful bystander. "Let's start with the special surprise from Daddy and me," she announced, presenting an expensive gaming system that she'd clearly chosen for maximum visual impact. Chloe's moment came during the traditional birthday speech, when family members shared memories and hopes for the birthday boy. She stood with the confidence of someone who'd rehearsed this moment, her voice carrying clearly across the silent backyard. "I want everyone to know how proud I am of my mom, especially after what she's been dealing with lately." The words hung in the air like a challenge, and Ashley's smile faltered slightly as she sensed the shift in the crowd's attention. Chloe continued with devastating precision. "See, some people have been trying to convince everyone that Mom's an unfit parent. They've been taking pictures, recording conversations, even paying private investigators to follow her around." Tom stepped forward aggressively, his face flushing with anger that seemed disproportionate to a teenager's speech. "Chloe, that's enough. Adults are lying," Marcus interrupted, his quiet voice carrying more authority than his father's bluster. "Ashley, show everyone the videos you took of Dad screaming at me in the McDonald's parking lot. Show them the recording where you called Mom too stupid to figure out what you were doing." The color drained from Ashley's face as she realized the trap they'd walked into. Every conversation they'd thought was private, every moment of cruelty they'd believed was hidden, had been documented by the very children they'd tried to use as weapons against their mother. Dad's voice cut through the stunned silence with quiet authority. "Tom, I think it's time you and Ashley left, now." The tone brooked no argument, backed by the presence of a dozen witnesses who'd just heard confirmation of manipulation and deception that exceeded anything they'd imagined possible. But Tom's reaction revealed the extent of his deterioration in a way that no amount of hidden recordings could have demonstrated. Instead of leaving quietly, he exploded with rage that shocked even family members who'd known him for years. "This is bullshit," he screamed, sweeping the birthday cake off the table in a gesture that splattered frosting across the patio. "Those kids belong with me. Jennifer's a pathetic single mother who can't even keep a job." The silence that followed was deafening. Children pressed closer to their parents, neighbors exchanged horrified glances, and Ashley stood frozen as her carefully constructed image of stability crumbled in real time. Every person present could see exactly what kind of man would destroy his own son's birthday party rather than accept accountability for his actions. Mike, Tom's own brother, finally spoke the words everyone was thinking. "Tom, you need help. Real help, and until you get it, these kids aren't safe with you." The transformation was complete. Predator had become prey, and everyone could see the truth. The weeks following Marcus's birthday party brought a healing that felt as gradual and necessary as spring after a brutal winter. Tom entered a residential treatment program in Wisconsin, his brother Mike later confiding that the public breakdown had been the wake-up call their family had been praying for. Ashley quietly moved back to her parents' house in Indiana, her social media presence disappearing entirely as the reality of her actions settled into shame. My job at the school district was restored with an official apology after the investigation revealed Tom's complaint had been based entirely on fabricated evidence. Principal Martinez personally called to express the administration's embarrassment at how quickly they'd acted on unsubstantiated claims, and my colleagues welcomed me back with a warmth that made clear where their loyalties had always been. The children's resilience proved stronger than any damage Tom's manipulation had attempted to inflict. Chloe threw herself into college preparation with renewed focus, her confidence boosted by the knowledge that standing up for truth had protected her family. Marcus returned to his art with lighter themes, watercolor gardens and sunlit landscapes that reflected an inner peace we'd all thought might be lost forever. Family dinners at Mom and Dad's house took on new meaning now that the truth had cleared the air between us. "We're sorry we couldn't tell you sooner, sweetheart," Mom said during our first Sunday meal after everything settled. "But we needed you to trust your own instincts about Tom, not just accept our judgment." The apology came with her famous lasagna and the understanding that sometimes protecting someone means letting them find their own strength. Most surprisingly, the community that had seemed so quick to judge rallied around us with a fierce loyalty once the truth became clear. Mrs. Henderson, who'd started the Whisper campaign, became one of our strongest defenders, organizing meal trains and childcare support with the zeal of someone making amends. The experience had taught our neighbors valuable lessons about the difference between gossip and genuine concern. 6 months later, the rental house that had felt like temporary refuge became our permanent home when Dad helped me secure a mortgage with terms that acknowledged both my steady income and the emotional stability we'd fought so hard to preserve. Walking through rooms that belonged to us, watching my children flourish in an environment free from manipulation and fear felt like the truest victory possible. The story serves as a reminder that families aren't always defined by blood or legal documents, but by the people who choose to protect each other when darkness threatens. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give your children isn't shelter from life's storms, but the example of how to stand strong when the wind tries to knock you down.